2009, a woman named Michelle is pregnant with her first child, a boy, and she and her husband move into a new rental house in Tennessee. I'm not sure where in Tennessee, she did not specify, but they needed more space. It seemed like the natural progression for their growing family. One day, her husband's at work, she's off that day, so she is unpacking the house when she hears the clear, distinct sound of a child laughing, and it sounds like it's coming from the couple's bedroom. Michelle stops what she's doing and she walks into the bedroom because it sounded that clear. She was like, is there a child in my house? Now, mind you, this is a standalone house. It's not an apartment building, so there's no other units in the building. And she was so sure that she heard it coming from the bedroom that she even checked under the beds and in the closets, but there was obviously no sign of a child. She's thinking, I must be going crazy. That must have come from somewhere outside. She hears the sound again, but this time it's coming from the house's basement. Goes down in the basement, looks around, obviously doesn't see any sign of a child, and at this point she's sure that it must have been coming from outside somewhere. So she actually goes outside the front door of the house and she's looking around the street for any activity that a child is playing outside somewhere nearby, but she doesn't see any evidence of a child or anybody really, and she goes back in the house. And as she's in the house, she hears the sound coming from the bathroom. Walks down the hall, looks in the bathroom, obviously no child again. And at this point, she said, I wasn't sure if I was being played, if there really was a kid outside, or if I was having auditory hallucinations. But either way, I didn't think too much of it. She said she just chalked this up to normal neighborhood activity and didn't even think to bring it up to her husband. But a few days later, she's at work, her husband's off, he's at home, and she looks down after her lunch break and she notices she has a voicemail from her husband. So she listens to the voicemail and it's her husband, and he's like, this is going to sound so crazy, but I keep hearing the sound of a child's voice laughing in our house and I cannot figure out where it's coming from. Calls him back. She's like, you wouldn't believe it. I heard the same thing the other day. They're talking about it. He's like, I'm going room to room. It sounds like the laugh is moving. I can't figure out where it's coming from. She's like, there must just be a kid that lives nearby that plays really close to our house. This activity continued periodically up until the point that Michelle had her son. She said he came into the world almost 3 months early, and after he was born, he had to stay in the NICU. During that time, there were no more disembodied voices. So fast forward, they don't have any more activity in the house. They think maybe this kid moved, whatever. Don't even really think about it anymore. When their son is 3, he starts having conversations with nobody, with the air in the apartment. And she thought at this point that he had developed an imaginary friend. It was harmless. It was cute even. But the conversations get more and more involved. And one day she's like, who are you talking to, honey? And he says, oh, it's my friend. His name is Johnny. He's a little boy like me. She goes, oh, okay, cute. He says, yeah, I like Johnny. I don't like his friends. They're monsters with glowing green eyes. She questions him. He says, yeah, I like Johnny. Johnny's nice, but I don't like the monsters because they stand over my bed every night and stare at me. Around this time, Michelle says that she and her husband had actually just watched a scary movie. It was new in 2009. She didn't name it. She actually said she was uncomfortable naming it. But she said that she went to sleep the night after they watched that movie, and they both experienced something that they couldn't explain because after falling asleep, they both woke up to the feeling of their feet being tickled, and then they felt something heavy jump up on the bed between them and run up the bed from their feet to next to their head. Michelle jumped up and turned the lights on immediately. She says they don't have any pets and their son was asleep in his room, so what could this have been? Talk about it for a minute. They're both thoroughly creeped out, but they agree that they must have had some kind of shared sleep paralysis episode, maybe from watching that scary movie. They moved from that house when their son is 5, and you would think it ends there, but it didn't. Johnny tagged along, as did his monsters. Michelle says she doesn't think that their son got a decent night of sleep through the entirety of the time they lived in their second house. Still saw Johnny, but now he was afraid of him. He still saw the monsters, and Michelle said she didn't know what else to do besides tell him to try to roll over, to go back to sleep, to pretend it was a dream, and to pray. Just a few weeks before they were all set to move again, all the activity seemed to stop. Their son started sleeping through the night again, and she asked about Johnny, and he said, oh, he's gone now, so are the monsters. She and her husband were both relieved and thought that maybe all of this activity was just related to their son's own imagination. Before they moved, though, she was outside talking with a neighbor, and his little son was playing in the yard, and she said that she saw that his son was talking to someone, and so she asked, like, who is he talking to? And the neighbor brushed it off, and he said, oh, don't worry about it. He has a new imaginary friend named Johnny. And the neighbor said his name. She said she felt a chill run up her body, and she was like, when did your son start playing with his imaginary friend? And the neighbor's like, oh, a few weeks ago, which coincidentally was around the same time that her own son started sleeping through the night. And so, of course, she told the neighbor all about her own family's experiences with Johnny, the imaginary friend. And she says to this day, she doesn't know if it was coincidence, and she's not sure if Johnny was a demon or an angel, if he was good or bad, but he definitely had other things around him that were not pleasant. Elle said it's fine if I used her real name, so she'll be seeing the comments. Let her know your thoughts. And if you have a spooky, scary story time, something that you think no one would believe, or something that happened that still leaves you unsettled, please send it in. We would love to hear it.
So it's definitely one thing to encounter an unexplainable creature on the outside of your house, but it's a whole other to encounter that creature on the inside of your house. Tonight's story has scared me so bad that I'm actually filming during the day because I don't want to film this alone at night. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachian story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Ella. Hi Savannah, I really wanted to send you my story of the time that I saw a mimic in my house. This happened about 5 years ago, and this encounter is actually what made my husband and I move out of the Appalachian Mountains altogether. I had just gotten out of the shower one evening and was standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom brushing my hair. My husband comes in there to tell me that he needed to run to town to grab something. I kissed him goodbye and told him to be careful and that I would see him in a little while. I could hear him walk down the hall, through the kitchen, and out the front door, closing the front door behind him. About 5 minutes later, I'm standing in the bathroom still, and as I was brushing my teeth, I could hear the front door open and close. I had just assumed that it was my husband coming back to grab something that he forgot. I could hear footsteps walking through the kitchen and starting down the hallway, but the footsteps sounded a lot louder than my husband's footsteps do. My mind instantly started racing with the thought that someone else had just come into the house. I got this wave of uneasiness that came over me, and it spooked me so bad that I shut and locked the bathroom door. I stood there just listening to the footsteps, when eventually the footsteps stopped right in front of the bathroom door, and that's when the door handle to the bathroom started to shake like someone was trying to open the door. My husband always calls me Ella May, and he's the only one that ever calls me that. I heard my husband's voice say, "Ella May, it's me, open the door." It sounded just like my husband, but something told me do not open that door. I said back to him, "I'm in the middle of something, I can't get to the door. Is everything okay?" And again, in my husband's voice, I heard him say, "I forgot my wallet, I came back to grab it." Before I could even answer him back, I heard the footsteps walking away from the bathroom door. At the time, I couldn't figure out why I felt so uneasy, but when I heard my husband's voice, it sounded just like him, and I thought I was being paranoid. So I opened the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway and started to walk toward my bedroom where my husband typically keeps his wallet. I figured that if he forgot it, he would be in there grabbing it. As I'm walking toward my bedroom, I hear footsteps behind me, and when I turn around, I do see my husband standing there, but the way he was standing just seemed a little off to me. He was standing there staring at me like he was looking through my soul. I asked if he was okay and if he had grabbed his wallet. He looked at me and said he couldn't find it. I glanced over my shoulder into our room and could see on his nightstand that his wallet wasn't there. When I turned my head back toward him, I don't know how this is possible, but he was closer to me. I didn't hear him move at all, and my head was turned for maybe 3 seconds. This unsettled me in the worst way possible. In that moment, I felt so unsafe that I told my husband I have to finish brushing my teeth. So I stepped back into the bathroom and shut and locked the door. I could hear footsteps walking down the hallway back toward the bathroom where I was. I started scanning the bathroom trying to find my phone, but I realized I left it in my room. The footsteps again stopped right in front of the bathroom door, and the door handle started to shake like someone was trying to open it. That's when I hear a car door slam shut from outside. The footsteps I heard earlier turned into running back down the hall toward the kitchen. But this didn't sound like footsteps running. It sounded like something was galloping. I know that's not the best description, but that's the best way that I can describe it. Imagine if someone was on all fours galloping down the hall. That's what it sounded like. I then heard the front door open and close, and I heard my husband's voice again say, "Hey babe, I'm back." And at this point, I'm terrified to open the door because what if it wasn't my husband? I heard footsteps coming toward the bathroom door again, and this time it sounded like my husband's normal footsteps. I said, "Babe, is that you?" And he said, "Yes, honey, I'm back." The door handle to the bathroom door started to move, and my husband said, "Did you mean to leave the back door open?" I instantly got tears in my eyes because I hadn't even been on that side of the house since my husband left. And the back door of the house is maybe 10 feet away from the front door. So when my husband left to go to the store, he would have saw the back door open and shut it. I said that definitely wasn't me. My husband could hear the fear in my voice, and he used his car key to unlock the bathroom door to get to me. When he came in, I knew instantly it was him. I felt safe and comforted by his presence, and that definitely wasn't the case for whatever I encountered just a few minutes earlier. I was sobbing, telling him what had just happened, and the look on his face is something I'll never forget. He seemed very shaken by what I was telling him, and what he told me next ended up being the final straw that led us to leave the Appalachian Mountains altogether. He told me that a few weeks earlier, while I was at work, he was in the garage organizing some things. That's when from inside the house he said he heard me call his name. My car obviously wasn't in the driveway, so he immediately got freaked out, thinking something was wrong. He said he walked into the house and called my name, and he heard me on the other end of the house call his name and say, "I need your help." My husband said he felt so uneasy about that he got in his car and left because he knew it wasn't me that day. I personally received a call from him, and he was asking me where I was. I told him that I was at work, and he said, "Okay, I was just making sure you weren't home." I said no and that I was at work and had been that entire morning. I even asked him while on the phone with him why he asked me that, and he said no reason, I just thought you were home. And I didn't think any more of it until I had my own encounter with whatever that was. We ended up selling our house and moving in with my in-laws several hours away, well outside of the Appalachian Mountains. I have never in my life encountered something so strange and frightening, and I really pray we never do again. Yeah, so like I said, it's definitely one thing to encounter something on the outside of your house that's unexplainable, but it's a whole other to experience that inside your house. And I honestly think that's why this story scares me so much, is that you're in the safety of your own home. Stuff like that should not happen in your home. You're in your safe space, and you are in your bathroom doing your normal routine, and you hear that coming down the hallway. Absolutely not. But not only did you encounter that in your house and actually interact with this thing, which I believe is a mimic, but then your partner also had an experience as well. That is horrifying. But I think the cherry on top of the cake for me is the part where it calls you by what your husband calls you. Because obviously this thing has been around and it has been watching you and learning what you say. That is horrifying to me. But Ella May, I would have done exactly what you did and sold my home and left the Appalachian Mountains if not only me, but my partner went through the same thing that you went through. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I missed you, but I'm so glad to be back. I love you and hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
What would you do if the girl renting your extra room stopped acting human almost immediately? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about someone who says that they got a new roommate and then started hearing something through her door at night. I rented out the extra room in my apartment a couple years ago because I needed help with rent. The girl who moved in seemed normal enough at first. She was quiet, polite, young, barely had any stuff. And she said she worked weird hours and mostly kept to herself, which honestly sounded ideal to me. The first thing I noticed was that she never ate. Not once. No groceries or takeout containers, no dishes in the sink, nothing ever missing from the fridge. Every time I offered her food, she'd just smile a little and say she already ate. At first, I figured she was eating out or at work. And then the night started. Her room was at the end of the hallway, and after maybe 4 or 5 days of her living there, I started hearing whispering through her door after midnight. Not talking on the phone or a normal conversation. Fast whispering, really fast, low and creepy and nonstop, like she was trying to keep up with something speaking back to her. And the worst part was that sometimes it didn't sound like one voice. It sounded like one voice answering another, but both of them were coming from inside her room. One night I stopped outside her door just to listen, and the whispering stopped immediately. And then from inside, in this weird, amused voice, she said, "Are you spying on me? I don't like that." I swear to you, I had not made a sound, and after that I started getting scared in my own hallway. I'd hear her moving around at night when she should have been sleeping. bare footsteps and her door opening and closing, and then that whispering again. And every morning she looked perfectly normal. Same quiet girl and the same blank little answers, like none of it was happening. And then one night I got up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and saw her standing in the hallway, completely still and barefoot, facing my bedroom. And her mouth was hanging open. Not wide or screaming, just open enough that something about it looked deeply wrong in the dark. I froze, and then I said her name. She didn't move for a second, and then she said without closing her mouth, "I thought you were still asleep." I locked my bedroom door after that. The next day I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe she sleepwalked, maybe she had some mental health thing going on, or maybe I should have just kept asking her to move out instead of getting myself worked up. And that night I passed her room and noticed the door was cracked open, so I looked in. She was kneeling beside her bed facing the wall, not praying or doing anything I could understand. Just kneeling there perfectly still in the dark with her head slightly bowed toward the wall like she was waiting for it to answer her. I backed away before she could turn around, and the next morning, while she was gone, I went into her room, and there was almost nothing in it. It was literally just a duffel bag, a few clothes, no real toiletries or food, no charger plugged in, and the bed barely looked slept in at all. And on the floor beside the mattress were pages and pages covered in my name over and over in different handwriting. And that night I didn't sleep. I just sat in bed with the lamp on staring at my door. And then sometime after 3 I heard the whispering again. Only this time it wasn't coming from her room. It was coming from inside mine. I looked up and she was standing in my doorway listening. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
So I translate a lot of stories from Relatos de la Noche. If you guys know Spanish, go and listen to their stories. They're so scary. But I was listening to the story and this lady wrote in not just because she wanted to share her experience, but because she needs help because this is happening in real time. Now, I'm hoping that since Relatos de la Noche has already done her story, maybe she got the help she needed, but just wait until you hear what she needs help with. This will make you not want to have kids. Yeah, and if you have them already, you better hope they're out of the house. So this mom says that she loves listening to Relatos de la Noche, but she never expected that she would have to write into Relatos de la Noche. So her and her husband have 2 kids, one that's 18 and one that is 10 years old. She explains that they are middle class and from time to time they do go into some financial troubles, but for the most part they're a very happy family. Her older son, the one that's 18, just started university. He's an athlete and she says that he is very healthy and he has really good grades. The university he's attending is 2 hours away from where they live, but she says that he does come every time he misses them. She is very proud of her son, but she said that recently there's something wrong with him that has her extremely worried. And she's going to explain to us why. Just fucking wait till you hear this. So she has the habit of staying up really late for work. She normally does this in the living room and she stays up till like 3 or 4 in the morning. So about 3 weeks ago, that's exactly what she was doing. She was in the living room. It was around 3 in the morning. She was just finishing some paperwork for her job. On the couch that she's sitting in the living room, if she looks forward, she can clearly see the upstairs that leads up to the 2nd floor of her house. This is just a side note. She says that her house is not super old but not super new and that this staircase is made out of wood. So as she's sitting there finishing her work, she says that she heard a creaking on top of the stairs and she realizes that somebody must have woken up. After that, she starts hearing when somebody's coming down the stairs. As a mom, without even looking up, she said that she knew exactly who it was by the footsteps and it was her eldest son who had been visiting from university. Without even thinking about it, she said that she asked, "Hey, are you thirsty or are you hungry?" but she didn't get a response. Now, she can still clearly hear him walking down the steps, but she says that he's coming down very slowly, but at this point she's confused as to why he didn't respond to her. She says that he came down the stairs to the halfway point and that is where she can now clearly see him completely. She says that what she saw almost made her faint in that moment. In the story, this is where she pauses and she's like, if you are someone that gets scared very easily, skip this part. Don't listen to this part because what I'm about to describe to you is the scariest thing I have ever seen in my life. When she looks up, at her son that is in the halfway point of those stairs, she says that her son's eyes were like as wide as they can be. Like, not just like you're in shock and you open your, no, like literally popping out of his head, and there's like no pupils. They were completely white. Okay, yeah, this would scare me. Oh my god. Relax, why are you doing this to yourself? But the way his eyes were like opened, it was just inhumane. She explained how his head wasn't normal either. It almost looked like his neck had broken to the side. So imagine this like broken neck, head to the side, eyes popping out with no pupils, just white. She says that his arms were like hanging like a rag doll, and that for some reason he was just shaking, almost as if he was having a hard time just standing there doing nothing. Oh my god, the broken neck lady from the, what is it, like the haunted Hill House, or what was that shit called from, yeah, fuck that. Now she says that she loves her son with all of her heart, but she could not handle the terror that she felt when she saw him just on the stairs, neck broken, like shaking, with the fucking wide eyes. She was terrified, so the only thing she thought to do was to go into her guest bedroom, which was on the first floor. So she stands up, and she says that the second she stood up, it was almost like he finally sensed her presence, because he immediately, you know, looked straight at her. And not just that, because he then smiles. She honestly felt that he was on the verge of like attacking her, but somehow she managed to go into that guest bedroom and lock the door. After she locks herself into that guest bedroom, she says that she can hear him walking around that first floor for like 20 minutes. After those 20 minutes, she hears him go up the stairs and go into his bedroom, and the door closes, but she did not dare come out. She literally spent the night in that guest bedroom. When she wakes up, she says that she could hear everybody in the living room, in the kitchen area, and her eldest son was back to normal. Like, there was nothing wrong with him. He was back to being her normal son. That same day, he had actually gone back to university, so obviously she stayed thinking like, what the fuck just happened? But she told herself maybe it was like the stress from school, like maybe something was going on. And when she tells her husband what happened that night, it's the same thing that her husband said. Maybe he was going through a lot of stress from schoolwork, and it was that. They both agreed that maybe when he had vacation around this month that he was gonna do a lot better, he wouldn't be so stressed out, and hopefully because he was gonna go and stay with them for like a month. Now she says that things did not get better, because he had actually returned last week to stay at their house again. Because of what happened those 3 weeks ago, she says that she had moved into this empty bedroom that they had in order for her to still stay up till 3 a.m. because she wasn't going to change that. She was now just going to do it in one of their spare bedrooms with the door closed and locked. So again, she's in that room with the door locked, and it's around 3 in the morning when she hears a door opening in one of the bedrooms and footsteps. When she hears this, she calls out to her elder son by name, and again there was no response. When she calls out his name and he doesn't respond, she hears when he stops walking, and then she hears where the footsteps are now leading to the bedroom where she is in. She says that she looks at that doorknob just to make sure that door is locked, but she got really fucking nervous. Now, even though she wasn't close by the door, she said that she could hear somebody breathing really hard outside of that door. She said that it was almost as if somebody was like this close to that door, just breathing hard. He stood there outside the door for at the very least 5 minutes, and then that is when she finally hears him say something. "Mother, I'm thirsty." Do I look like the kitchen bitch? Go downstairs. Why the fuck you telling me? You 18, you can go down there and get yourself a little fucking juice. Why are you fucking talking to me for? She says that when she heard that, it was almost as if 3 voices came out at once, but she also noticed that he called her mother, and her son never calls her mother. She says her son typically calls her ma or mama, but never like madre, mother. She didn't dare respond. She said nothing, and then she says that she kind of hears him stop breathing outside the door for like 2 minutes, and then he started knocking violently on the door saying, "Mother, I'm hungry." She said that the voice and the knocking on the door just caught her off guard. She put her headset on and she put that music on full blast because she was going to ignore him until she saw something from the side of her eye. She noticed his fingers underneath the door, but she said that they weren't just like trying to like grab. No, it looked like he was trying to drag himself into that bedroom from the bottom of the door. You know, that little space at the bottom? She thought her heart was gonna come out of her fucking chest, and she was so scared that he was gonna break the door down. Also, side note, she says her son is like 6 feet tall. He's taller than his dad, so she was so scared that he was actually gonna like break into that room. After a while, she says that he just stopped and goes back to the bedroom, and she never heard him come back out. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to make of this. She said that she told her husband in the morning and that her husband told her that she was exaggerating. It is 2026. Go get some fucking cameras and prove him wrong. She ends it there, saying that she promised to write into Relatos de la Noche to see what happens, because this is happening in real time right fucking now. There is no update. I checked already. This video came out this week, so like, is she okay? What do you guys think?
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, you won't forget. Don't eat too much, because you gotta stay fine, but come on, bestie is. Yeah. Hi, bestie boo. I missed you. I'm whispering a little bit because baby girl's like, anyway, this story is from Nigeria. So for the sake of the story, let's call this girl Ada. And let's call the guy Chike. So Ada and Chike were like the power couple. They were together for years. And like literally everybody wanted to be like them. They were so in love, right? Until Chike got a job offer in Lagos. So he ended up having to move to Lagos for work. But there's no worry about that because the love of his life is Ada, or so she thought. So he moved for work, right? And at first everything was fine. They would speak like every day, but then like slowly but surely communication started to slow down a little bit. But she's like, yeah, he's working, so I understand. Communication went from every day to like once every 2 days, and then once a week, and then like not hearing from him for like weeks. And anytime she would like say something about it, he would just be like, oh, I'm so busy for work. And she would be like, yo, like you work, yeah, but like there's no way you're so busy that you're only calling me once a week. Anyway, so one of the people from their village was actually in Lagos and came back and told Ada that she saw him with another woman, and I mean they were coupled up. Ada was devastated. It made sense. You found another woman. That's why you ain't speaking to me as much. Like, and she got like super depressed. She stopped eating. She stopped going out. Like every day she was at her family's house, just like sitting, waiting with her phone in her hand, waiting for him to call. And so like her family was tired of seeing her like that because they were like, girl, just move on. Like he moved on, you move on too. But you know, harder said than done. And Chike was literally like her first boyfriend, like the first boy she'd ever been in love with, right? So boom, one day one of her cousins told her like, girl, you gotta stop sitting around moping around about this guy. If you want him, I can help you. And at this point, Ada didn't even care. Like she'll do anything to get her man back. So Ada was like, I'm down. Like, what do you like? How do I get my man back? And the friend is like, I know this old woman that would definitely make sure Chike comes back to you. However, the things that she do is like it comes at a cost. It's not really for free. Ada didn't care though. Ada's like, I need my man back. Let's go. So they make plans and they go see the old lady. And the old lady literally sat there and listened to her cry about Chike for hours. And then she told Ada like, all right, girl, stop crying. I'll get you your man back. But you have to do exactly what I say. The woman went to the back for a few, like did what she did. I ain't gonna give too many details because y'all like to try stuff. She came back and gave Ada a bundle of clothes. But she told her not to open it. She was instructed to take this bundle of clothes, go back to her home, and there was a mango tree. Mind you, she didn't even tell the lady she had a mango tree. The lady just knew. The lady was like, there's a mango tree behind your house. I need you to go and bury this set of clothes under your mango tree. Do it at midnight and don't tell anybody, and I mean nobody. Cool. Ada was like, bet, I'm doing it. That same night, Ada got home and did exactly what the lady told her to do, went to that mango tree and did what she had to do. 3 days later, her phone is ringing. Guess who it is? It's Chike. Ada is jumping for joy. And from that day forward, Chike was calling her every day. When I tell you Ada was happy, she's like, yes, it worked. I got my man back. A week later, Chike just showed up to the village. Didn't even tell Ada he was coming. Just showed up and surprised her. She thought it was like the absolute sweetest thing in the world. She was head over here. She's like, oh my gosh, my man came and surprised me. When he came, he like apologized. He was telling her how much he missed her and how he can't stop thinking about her. Ada is absolutely overjoyed. But then a few weeks later, that joy started to become a little confusing because Chike had now refused to leave Ada's side. And at first, she thought like, oh, cute, sweet, like you don't want to leave my side. But then that wasn't really Chike. Like he wasn't the type that has to be by your side all the time. I mean, if she went to the market, he had to come. If she went to see her cousin, her brother, whatever, he had to come. She was sitting outside just enjoying the view. He has to be somehow near her, even if he has to stare at her for hours. He's even refusing to go to work back in Lagos. At first, she thought it was just her that noticed it, but then like her friends started to like jokingly make jokes about how Chica is now obsessed with her. And it was like definitely like funny, a little jokey joke at first, but then like in the back of her mind, she's like, hold on, because she know what she did. And she really did try to like put it off until one night, right? He's sleeping with her and everything like that, and she wakes up in the middle of the sleep. Like she just happened to be like turning, you know, tossing and turning. The way they were laying down was that she was facing the wall and he was behind her. And so she was like turning and she turned. And when she turned, he was up just like staring at her. She kind of was like, hey, babe, like, are you okay? And he didn't say nothing. And so she kind of like tapped him like, babe. And he was just like, oh, hey. And she asked him like, why were you just staring at me? He was like, no, I wasn't. And she was like, yeah, you were. Like, I just woke up and you were just staring at me in my sleep. And he was kind of like, no, I wasn't. I was sleeping. It was at that point that something in her heart was like, oh, something ain't right. But she still tried to put it off, right? Cool. The next night, the same thing happens, except when she was tossing and turning, he's sitting on the bed staring at her. So she like touched him again. And he was like, what happened? She like, you was doing it again. You was staring at me. And then he was like, wait a minute. Like when did I even wake up? When did I even like sit on this bed? What is happening? This started to be a habit, like an every night kind of thing, to where she's like afraid to go to sleep at this point, because if he doesn't remember getting up staring at her, what if he like does something and he don't remember it? And as this is going, Chica starts looking sick. Like he's losing weight. His eyes started being very bloodshot red on a daily basis. He even started mentioning hearing somebody calling his name. Like he would be talking to her and he'd be like, yeah. And she'd be like, who are you answering to? And he'd be like, somebody just called me. And she'd be like, no, they didn't. Anyway, fast forward now, he becomes very emotional. Like he would constantly ask her, like, are you gonna leave me? Are you gonna leave me? You're gonna leave me. I know you're gonna leave me. And she'd be like, no, like I would never leave you. We've been together for years. Why would I leave you? Cool. So his job ended up calling him like, yo, if you don't come up for work, like you're gonna get fired. And so he kind of had to go back to Lagos. He made a deal with Ada. He told Ada, like, I'm coming every weekend. Like I will spend the week for work so I can work and then come see you every weekend. Cool. He goes back to work. He spends 3 days at work, and Ada is fully expecting him to come on the weekend, except she woke up in the middle of the night one day and, you know, she woke up to a knock and there he was at the door. So she was like, hey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at work. What happened? When she looked at him, she realized he's crying, like real tears. So she's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? He's like, there's a woman following me. There's a woman following me. I keep seeing this woman everywhere and she keeps following me. I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to go back to work. Well, Ada at this point, she's really starting to be freaking terrified because she knows what she did, but she can't tell nobody what she did. So she tries to calm him down. She like lays down with him and say, hey, let's just go to sleep. Like, let's go to sleep. So they go to sleep. And she wakes up about like 20 minutes after she thought she put him to sleep. When she woke up, he was gone. So she was like, what the hell is going on? She's looking all over the house for him, cannot find him. So something told her to look outside. And when she looked outside, he's under that same mango tree talking to nobody, to nothing. Not just talking, he's like arguing with something, screaming, to the point where people in the village started waking up. News got to his mom, and his mom came and confronted Ada. Because, you know, elders, they already know what's up. And so she was just like, what did you do to my son? If you don't tell me what you did to my son right now, whatever you did is going to be on you so much worse. So finally, she confessed. She confessed that she went to this lady and they told her to bury something in that same mango tree. That's where she buried it. Cool. And tears and everything. She admits everything. So immediately, all the adults is like, you need to go unbury that right now. And so she goes to the spot that she went to unbury it. Except she can't find it. She can't find what she buried. So then people start helping her dig. They can't find it either. So obviously his parents had to take matter into their own hands. They took him, went somewhere else with him. She actually never saw him again. However, till this day, her love life is trash. She's now 50-something years old. She has never been married. No relationships has ever worked out for her. Somehow everybody she dated always ended up being super abusive to her, even though like they've never been abusive before in their lives. But for some reason, to her specifically, like they would, yeah. the story, y'all. I give y'all 10 whole minutes again. Time is almost up, so don't forget to go to my YouTube channel and don't forget to let me know what you ate, okay? I love you. Bye.
I am not a big believer in the paranormal. However, there was one thing that has happened to me that I to this day cannot explain. It happened in the summer of 2018. I was solo camping in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest in Washington State. Again, I was completely alone and I was up there miles and miles away from the nearest human. There's no campsites anywhere nearby. I was there for a full week and I never heard or saw a sign of another living human being at all. But I was up there doing some gold dredging. I planned to stay there for maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 days, just enjoying nature by myself, camping by myself. And to set up the scene for you, so I drove up this old logging trail until eventually I came to a spot where I could look off and I could see the creek a ways away, and there was a little bit of a clearing in the woods, enough so to where I could set up a little bit of a campsite. And the way that I camp, I normally do not bring a tent or anything like that. I'll just set up a little campfire, like some rocks, set up a campfire, and then I put down an iso mat, which is just a thin insulated mat that I can lay on top of, and then I'll use my military issue poncho liner as a blanket. And that's really all I use for my campsite. And then I'll usually have my pistol, well, pretty much always have my pistol like under my head when I'm sleeping, and I'll keep a little flashlight or a headlamp with me so that if anything, happens, I have some way to protect myself. Well, everything went amazing for the first 6 days. I was just out there, diving in the creek, dredging for gold, catching fish. It was amazing. But on the 7th day, after I was done dredging for gold, the sun was starting to go down. It was time to kind of get ready for bed. So I cooked up some fish, I had my dinner, and, eventually I laid down. And right next to me, I had my little headlamp, which is one of those little headlamps that has the elastic strap, straps onto your forehead. I had that right next to me. And then I had my USP 45 handgun basically underneath my head with my hand on it. So if anything happens, of course. Well, I don't know exactly when I fell asleep. It was probably sometime around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, maybe later. And I don't know exactly what time I woke up, but it was sometime in the middle of the night. And the reason I woke up is because I heard something heavy walking around in the woods around me. And it didn't sound like a deer or like some small animal. I mean, these were like heavy footsteps, almost like a bear or something. But when you're next to a fire, you can't really look out and see into the woods in the middle of the night. I mean, you have a very limited space where you can actually see what's going on. But anyways, I kind of sat up and I grabbed my handgun and I'm looking around and I can't see anything, but I'm just hearing these heavy footfalls over and over and over again. And I am feeling around, trying to find my headlamp, my flashlight, and I can't find it at first, but eventually I do. I find it and I turn it on and I shine it out and I'm looking around the woods all around me. And as soon as I turned it on, those heavy footfall noises, they stopped. And I'm looking around in the direction I think it came from, but I don't see anything at all. And it's kind of hard to tell direction in the woods because the noise kind of reverberates off the brush and the trees. But I'm looking around and I don't see anything at all. And my fire is still going because I wake up every, now and then, maybe every hour, and I kind of stoke the fire. I add logs onto the fire to keep myself warm. So my fire, it's still going pretty strong, when out of absolutely nowhere, a rock the size of my head, and I'm not exaggerating, it was at least the size of my head, came flying out of the darkness, out of the woods, right past me, and impacted into my camping fire. And my fire just exploded all over the place. Now, I have to tell you, where I was at, it was a flat area. It's not like this rock could have come rolling down a hill and hit my fire. And the rock was so large, A human could not have thrown it from that distance, not without some kind of special device. Anyways, it would have been the strongest man in the world couldn't have thrown it that distance. So I had absolutely no idea what was going on, and it is the only time in my life where I have been out in the wilderness alone and somewhat panicked. I freaked out. I grabbed my pistol. I had no idea like what direction to, go in, but I knew what direction my truck was in. And so I got up and I just kind of sprinted into the darkness towards my truck. And I got up to that logging road. I found my truck. I opened the door and I locked myself in my truck. And I spent the rest of my night locked inside my truck, just freaking out. I didn't sleep at all because I had no idea what had just happened. Well, the next day I woke up and all of my, gear is still down in the creek. I had to go get it. So I got out, I went and grabbed my gear, but I got it as fast as I possibly could. I packed it in my truck and I left, and I never went back to that spot again. I'm not suggesting that it was anything in particular. I'm just telling you that that is an honest to God true story, and I have no idea what that could have possibly been.
Have you ever heard the saying of be careful what you wish for? Because there was actually a man that was so jealous of his best friend that he wished for his best friend's life. After he got his best friend's life, it ended up unaliving him. So this is the story of two best friends by the name of Mateo and Daniel. Mateo and Daniel have been best friends since they were in middle school. Even though Mateo will never admit it, he has always been jealous of Daniel because he always felt like Daniel just had his life like handed to him. Daniel graduated college, he built a successful business from the ground up, married a beautiful woman by the name of Sofia, and was just extremely successful. While Mateo had always struggled, he flunked out of college, he couldn't afford to finish paying it, and financially he was pretty much in the ruins. No matter how hard Mateo worked, he could just never get ahead, and it just made like the jealousy that he had for Daniel, or the obsession, just grow. One night after Mateo had a couple drinks, he became even more bitter to the point that he decided to seek out the help of a bruja. When he went to seek out this woman, he told her everything. He told her, I want Daniel's fortune. I want his life. The life that he has should have been mine. The bruja kind of looked at him confused and pretty much told him that she could go ahead and do a destiny swap, but it was going to come with a price. She pretty much told him that she could give him Daniel's destiny, but he wasn't only going to get the good stuff. Mateo would also acquire the bad stuff that came along with it. Mateo told the woman that he didn't care to go ahead and do the ritual, so the woman went ahead and performed it. Not long after, just like clockwork, Daniel's business started to fail. Clients after clients kept dropping out. He was losing money left and right. Everywhere he went, things were just going wrong for him. Meanwhile, Mateo's life exploded with success. He started betting in sports and won millions. For the first time in Mateo's whole life, he had money literally falling out of the sky. He didn't know what to do with it. But at the same time, he was laughing with content because he knew that the ritual had worked. As Daniel's life started to fall apart, his marriage also started to fall apart. They were really struggling financially. Collection notices came daily. The collectors, the debitors, like they were literally about to lose their house. One day, Sofia, Daniel's wife, made the decision that she never thought that she would ever have to. She decided to go to Mateo, being that now Mateo is living in this like luxury apartment. Sofia goes to Mateo and asks him for a loan so she can help her husband out because they're literally about to lose everything. Now, here's one thing that no one knew is the fact that for years, Mateo has always wanted Sofia. Mind you, he always wanted everything that Neil had, so Sofia was a part of the package. So he pretty much told Sofia that he wouldn't loan her the money, that he would give her the money in exchange for... Sofia was of course horrified and disgusted and abruptly told him no. But then she started to think about all of the hardships that was going on with her and her husband, how Daniel was literally about to lose everything that he had worked hard for, and she couldn't bear to see it, so she agreed. The next morning, after she spent the night with Mateo literally threw the money at her like she was garbage and told her to leave. At this point, Mateo felt like he finally won. Not only did he get Daniel's success, he got the money, but he now got Daniel's wife. That victory did not last very long because not long after, Mateo started having a bunch of stomach issues. He was in a ton of pain. He decided to go get checked out at the hospital, and he finds out that he has stomach cancer, like at the end stages of stomach cancer. Desperate, he tells the doctor that he has all the money in the world to fix it, to help him, to cure him. The doctor pretty much told him that there wasn't much more that they can do, that they can try to keep him comfortable, but the end was near. Mateo, remembering the bruja, he decided to use the last little bit of strength that he had to go visit the bruja and beg her for help. Mind you, at this point, Mateo is in hospice care. Like, they've already given up all hope. No amount of money in the world could save him. When he saw the bruja, he desperately told her to undo what she had done, that he wanted his destiny back, to take all the money, take all the fortune. He didn't want any of it. He just wanted his health. The old woman looked at him and said, I warned you. When you asked for Daniel's fortune or for his destiny, you didn't just take the good things, you took the burdens as well. Daniel was the one that was supposed to get the stomach cancer, but since you guys swapped, now you're the one with it. The old woman pretty much told him, there's nothing I can do. Destiny will always come and collect, and this is what's going on right now. Mateo ended up passing away in extreme agony, I may add, in extreme pain, because not even the pain meds were working. He passes away. The moment he passes away, Daniel's destiny almost comes back to him. The dark cloud that had been hovering over him almost disappeared overnight, and he started to gain money. Like, his old contacts started contacting him for new businesses and like new offers and new projects, and little by little he started to build his fortune back up. Some say that it may be a coincidence, others say that it was karma, but in the little town where this happened, people to this day still tell this cautionary tale as to what happens to your brain when you become obsessed and jealous instead of focusing on yourself and building yourself up. So the bruja's warning was pretty much simple. You can inherit someone's fortune or destiny, but you also inherit all of the burdens and the prices that they must pay for all the things that they have.